Hey guys, I wanted to give a little bit of a disclaimer before shooting into this video. Before you watch this, you should know a couple of things. Number one is I actually recorded and uploaded all of this content about 2 years ago. So sometime in 2020, I decided I wanted to make a recap series about the Succession War arc because we were still in the hiatus of HunterXHunter not being with us yet. And now Togashi has created a Twitter account out of nowhere, gets millions of followers, and has released information that we are getting more HunterXHunter content. New chapters are coming out in the very near future. So it's a great time to go back and sort of reread the Succession War arc. But if you don't have the time to do that, or if you have no idea what's happening in the manga whatsoever because you only read the anime and you want to catch up to be part of this exciting new news as the new chapters are coming out, I got you guys. So, like I said, about 2 years ago, I created this 5-part series, 5 different videos, kind of going down and breaking down each part of the Succession War arc because it is very complex. It's basically like Game of Thrones on a boat. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening within this arc. And so I broke it down basically piece by piece. Overall plot view, what's going on with the Phantom Troop, what's going on with Kirapica, the Kakin Princess. There were 5 videos in total that you're going to get all complete in one gigantic video, which is this video. Now, the reason that those videos were no longer up is because at the time they all got copyright strike to hell because Shueisha and, anything that owns a lot of shonen properties, they really hate when you show manga panels in a YouTube video, even if it's creative, constructive criticism, commentary, whatever, falls in within fair use, but they still can copyright strike it anyways. So all the videos pretty much got taken down. And what I did was I went back and I re-edited them in a way that I cropped out pretty much all of the panels whatsoever. I mean, you see like a third of the panel, as well as I put like my logo over it at the time. And I was going to re-upload these afterwards. But I kind of got to the point where I didn't really want to re-upload them because I just didn't want to deal with the headache of the possibility of the copyright strikes and everything involved in that. And so I never re-uploaded them. So they've literally been sitting on my computer for about 2 years now. But I went back through and I watched a few of the edits that I made, and I really hope that what I am actually showing in the video, which is not a whole lot, won't actually get flagged by the copyright system. So if you're still with me here for this intro, I want you to just know a few things. I made these videos 2 years ago, so the audio quality will not be as good as this mic because I was using my old mic, so I apologize for the poor audio quality, and I also apologize for the cropped edits of the manga panels. I was trying to make it in a way that it wouldn't get flagged by some copyright system, even though it falls completely within fair use anyway, but YouTube doesn't really care about that when the flagging is happening. It's a whole algorithmic system. Who cares? Anyways, here you go, guys. This is it. All 5 videos in one, a full comprehensive guide of everything that has happened in the Succession War arc so far, broken down piece by piece. And here it is, guys. I hope you guys enjoy. Appreciate it. Here you go. So, if you're anything like me, as soon as you finished HunterXHunter the anime series, you were like this. But then, you ultimately learned that the series was still ongoing in manga form, and so you were like this. It's a no-brainer that you would need to start reading right away. However, the current Succession War arc has made many fans feel, well, really fucking confused, mostly because of a few different factors. There are an insane amount of characters, both new and old, and I'm talking dozens upon dozens of characters. 12 Zodiac members, 14 princes of Kakin, all with Nen Beast and different Nen abilities, the Kakin King and all of his wives, all of their bodyguards, beyond Netero and his entire team, the Phantom Troop, which is comprised of 10 members, the hunters on board, and the bodyguards for the other purposes there, along with having 3 different mafia groups and each having multiple members, including one with over 20 of them, all on board a ship that has thousands of background characters. There's also multiple plot lines at work, including the Succession War itself, Beyond's plans, the journey to the Dark Continent, but first to the New Continent, the Phantom Troop searching for Hisoka, Karapika wanting to retrieve the rest of his remaining eyes of the Kurta clan, and the Mafia's plans, and top all that with keeping straight all of the Nen abilities and how they work, and some are extremely complicated like Serenity or Morena's, constant introduction of new players and events, and the not so small fact that Togashi's hiatuses between chapters rivals that of Kentaro Miura himself. So the long gaps between chapters combined with all of this information and storylines, it's easy to forget just what the hell is going on. And when there's pages like this at times, it might be hard to concentrate for those who aren't used to reading this much in a manga. However, despite all of these facts, the Succession War arc continues to be, in my opinion, an incredible, elaborate, and ambitious piece of work that is filled to the brim with high-tension, anxiety-inducing intrigue and discovery, twists and turns around every corner, and is impossible to predict, which keeps things engaging and very fun to experience. The whole arc feels like a fuse on a stick of dynamite getting closer and closer to the point where it's ready to explode. And I think that when all is said and done, it will be an arc of Hunter x Hunter that could truly rival that of the Chimera Ant arc for the top spot of the series, and I truly mean that. I've reread what we have so far of this arc, and I want to make a series of 5 videos breaking down each aspect of the arc and maybe be able to better break down the important bits of it and give you a nice little recap of everything thus far. Disclaimer though, I am not attempting to say I have any absolute knowledge on everything that's presented or its intentions. I'm sure there's things that I'm going to forget, and I'm just a fan that likes to talk about Hunter x Hunter just like you guys. So with that all out of the way, let's get into it. With this first video of my 5-part series, before I really dive into the Succession War itself, I think it's a good idea to remind us all why we're even here in the first place. And to do that, we need to talk about the Dark Continent and its importance and everything that is the entire reason for the voyage upon the Black Whale. So everything begins when this worldwide announcement is made by the king of the Kakin Empire. Kakin is a country in the continent of Asia in the Hunter x Hunter world map, and there are 5 other major world countries that come together to create what is called the V5. It's just a group or unity between all of these world leaders to organize, keep the peace, and all of that. But Kakin went through some kind of revolution 30 years ago and technically became a new nation. So any treaties or anything that the V5 had with the world, Kakin did not renew, so they aren't subject to any of the rules that the V5 laid down for them. So basically, through a small loophole, the country of Kakin is free to do whatever it wants without having to go through all of the other world leaders. So the king of Kakin comes out with an announcement to the entire world telling them that he is going to lead a huge expedition to a place called the Dark Continent. And the Dark Continent was one of those crazy twists that Togashi threw in that's basically the biggest kept secret in the entire world, and only a few people know about it. The world as we know it, all the countries inhabited by mankind, are not surrounded by oceans, but are actually inside a giant lake in the center of a landmass that is actually covering the entire planet, known as the Dark Continent. And the V5 specifically made any trip to the Dark Continent off limits, and it's been completely hidden from the people at large. The biggest conspiracy theory that there possibly could be. You know, we have flat earthers in our real world, but why don't we have any dark continenters? I would accept that theory way before I'd accept a flat earth. Anyway, the reason it's off limits is because of the types of things that exist on the continent, and that they are incredibly dangerous to mankind to the point where it harbors extinction-level threats that could never get out to the public. You know those pesky chimera ants that took over almost the entire world? Well, they were from the Dark Continent. Aluka, who can grant wishes and also kill hundreds of people in an equivalent exchange type deal, also from the Dark Continent. There's also 5 very specific threats that are mentioned in the manga that will likely come into play. There's some kind of deadly gaseous life form called Codependence of Desire. There's a sphere that protects ancient ruins called Brion. There's a hellbell snake that infects you with venom that turns you homicidal. And there's a beast named Pap, which is a very cute name. And yeah, this thing likes to keep you as a shrunken head type pet, influencing you between pain and pleasure. And let's not forget Zombie, the immortality disease, causing you to live forever but become a zombie-like being feeding on your own life force. The continent is also filled with many other unknown threats and giant beasts and monsters. So why would anybody even want to go there?
Well, besides the thrill of just being able to do it and not die, there's also more things on the continent besides these threats, such as ores that can generate an enormous amount of electricity, herbs that can cure diseases, longevity rice that prolongs your life, and much more that are left undiscovered. Perhaps plenty of the things that could really benefit mankind. Also, to even enter the continent, there's apparently some sort of gatekeeper, but we have yet to get any real information on who or what this figure is. So why does the Kakin King think he can handle all of this? Well, because he has a man that's been there before, in the form of a guy named Beyond Netero, and he is the son of Isaac Netero, the former Hunter Association chairman. Upon Beyond showing himself and doing something like this, Netero recorded a video before his death to show the Zodiacs. These are the 12 hand-picked members of the association that you can kind of consider like the Jedi Council of the Hunters. He explains that he's been to the continent before as well, but he was seeking an ultimate opponent, not the ultimate force of nature and threats that he found there. So he requests that the Zodiacs explore the continent before his son Beyond gets a chance to. It's kind of like his last dying wish. Clearly, he didn't have the best relationship with his son Beyond, and it's also clear that Beyond, though not outright evil in any way, definitely has his own personal interests and doesn't care about anybody trying to stop him, especially since he has free reign to do whatever he wants as the guide to the Kakin Empire. So a couple of things happen here with all of this information. The Zodiacs decide that they want to try and capture Beyond before the expedition can even start, but Beyond turns himself over to them right away. He's an extremely smart and forward-thinking character, knowing exactly how the future events will plan out. For example, the V5, the United Countries, are trying to stay on top of things now that the entire world knows that the Dark Continent exists. So they basically decide to cover their own ass as much as possible, while still allowing Kakin to do whatever they want, but with the hope that they'll fail in the process. Here's what I mean. The V5 invited Kakin to join them as a world power and acts like, oh yeah, we've been waiting for you to join all along. We'll take this opportunity to have you join in. Typical politics, saving face and backstabbing each other, you know how it goes. So then they make a deal that while the King of Kakin promises to deliver thousands of people to the Dark Continent for a new, prosperous way of life, that they actually drop everybody off at an uninhabited island before they reach the real Dark Continent. This way, everyone believes that they are at the Dark Continent, and then the Kakin King can be praised for being a hero and a legend that led people to the new land. The king will get all of the recognition without any of the backlash of everyone dying upon arrival on a real Dark Continent. He'll go down in history as that hero, kind of like Christopher Columbus. Then, after the people are dropped off, the king, his princes, Beyond and his team, and whoever else, can then go to the real Dark Continent. And the V5 hopes that when they do, they'll all just be killed anyway, like every other expedition, and they won't have to worry about it anymore. But if they do happen to find positive benefits for mankind and make it back, it'll be evenly shared between the new V6, now including Kakin. So it's a win-win for the original world leaders and for the Kakin King. Everybody gets to do what they want, and no one gets to suffer the blame. But to ensure the Kakin King follows his plan, the V5 will then hire hunters to keep everything in line and in check. So back to Beyond letting himself get captured by the Zodiacs. He knew that they would have to be his chaperone anyways, so he just waited here. He's also completely confident that he can escape whenever he wants to, so he's just going to ride the boat journey to the continent in his cell until he breaks free or feels like escaping. As of this recording, we still don't know what Nen type or ability he has, or if that will play into his escape at all, or if his crew will come to bust him out. So his crew. Meanwhile, Beyond also has a team of characters stowed away on the boat to the continent. Oh, by the way, the boat is called the Black Whale. There's no point in getting into who they all are because some haven't been explored that much, but I think the important part is that among Beyond's team is the former Zodiac member, Phaeton. Now, Phaeton, as we saw in the election arc, is like the ultimate troll. He loves making people as frustrated as he can, and he does it with a smile on his face. He even admits that he loves being hated, and that it's what he lives for. Phaeton is also in control and possession of all of those unhatched Chimera ants that were in cocoons at the end of the Chimera Ant arc. He's had them stored away and could unleash them at any moment's notice. Now, that's not going to affect anyone on the voyage to the Dark Continent, but it does show that Phaeton has many things in his back pocket, and he's not one to count out in any way. But also, Phaeton's best rival, Jean, Gon's father, has also joined Beyond's team. Not to support Beyond, but to get his ticket to the Dark Continent as well. So this causes more hostility between Phaeton and Jean kind of buys his way into the group's trust, and Phaeton is obviously very frustrated by this, but again, all with a smile on his face. Phaeton also forces Jean to use a Nen ability, but it was a direct copy of Leorio's. Remember when Leorio epically punched Jean in his stupid freaking face? Well, Jean could mimic it perfectly. Whether his Nen ability is to copy others, or if this is just a result of his skill of being a really skilled hunter, or whatever limitations are put on it, that's yet to be seen, but he was able to accurately mimic Leorio's ability. Jean also has another reason why he wants to go to the continent, and that's because there was a book written about the eastern side of the Dark Continent itself called The Journey to the New World, and the western half of the book has yet to be found, and Jean theorizes that that's because it's still being written, and it's being written by an ancestor of his named Dawn Freaks, still alive after decades of living on the continent, living off of whatever kind of nutrition and herbs are available there. So these are the many reasons why Jean also wants to get to the continent. Okay, so we got the Kakin Empire going, thousands of random people excited for the new continent, Beyond's crew, and the Zodiacs. But the Zodiacs are down 2 members since Phaeton and Jean left them. So they first recruit Leorio, saying that he's going to be part of their medical unit. And then Leorio suggests the next final Zodiac in Kirapica. And Kirapica, who has been MIA for a very long time in the story. But the Succession War arc is truly his time to shine, and he will be mostly our focal point as far as recognizable characters in the current situation go. I'm going to dive into everything Kirapica in another video coming up in this recap series, so I won't go into specifics here, but Kirapica has been collecting the eyes that were stolen from his fallen clan, and the final remaining eyes are going to be on the ship to the continent held by one of the princes of the Kakin family. So this is what gets Kirapica to join, as he is hoping to get these eyes back, and he is also reunited with Leorio, which is really nice to see. So you might also be wondering, where are Gon and Killua? We spent so much time with them before, and it's true. One of the boldest and most drastic moves that Togashi made with this arc is shifting the focus away from the main character of the entire series. It's incredible if you think about it that he would even be willing to attempt this, especially in a shonen series that often revolves around seeing our young boy protagonist grow up. But Gon right now has lost his ability to create any aura or use Nen due to his fight with Neferpito. And as a result, he has returned home to his Aunt Mito, and this is the last that we see of him for now. As for Killua, it's assumed that he's still traveling with Alluka, but we haven't had any updates. As for Karapika, he helps the Zodiacs weed out spies working for Beyond during an off-screen hunter exam, and it's suspected that Seiyu, one of the Zodiacs, the monkey, is working for Beyond as well. Karapika also recruits other hunters that he trusts to all be bodyguards to various princes of the Kakin royal family. Specifically, we get Izuvani, who we really haven't seen do anything, but he's the guy that taught Karapika Nen. We also have Hanzo, who is a ninja that took the hunter exam the same time Karapika did. Basho, who was a bodyguard with Karapika once before. Same thing with Melody, and Melody is such a great character. I'm really glad that she's back. And randomly Biscuit also, who Karapika doesn't really know, but she was recommended to him by Killua. I'll allow it because I really like Biscuit too. But I really wish that Knuckle was here. I think he would be a fantastic addition to this position, but again, Karapika doesn't know who Knuckle is, so it makes sense that he's not here, but man, I miss that dude. Now there is one big thing I haven't mentioned for the Succession War arc, and that's, well, what the hell is the Succession War? Well, I'm going to get into all of that in the next episode of the series. The next video, in its entirety, will focus on the Kakin princes, the Succession War, the ritual, their Nen Beasts, and abilities. Welcome back to my HunterXHunter Succession War recap series. I'd recommend watching part 1 before this one, link will be in the description below. Since HunterXHunter is on an extended hiatus and the Succession War is the most cram-packed and information-heavy arc thus far, it's very easy to forget and get confused on just what the hell is going on. I'm attempting, and yes, I say attempting, to break down the major elements of this arc to better help understand the complexity of it all. This video will focus entirely on what the Succession War is, the competitors therein, what they can do, and what they are all currently up to in the story. Disclaimer: I am not claiming to have any absolute knowledge of the series, and that I also may forget some stuff as I'm just a fan trying to figure it out just like all of you. But with all that out of the way, let's get right into it. So with the Kakin Empire leading an expedition to the Dark Continent, the king is going to be known to the world as a hero that led the people to a new land of prosperity. But behind the scenes, the king has plenty of ulterior motives rather than just getting to and exploring the Dark Continent. For instance, he is using the sea voyage to the continent as the playing grounds for the Kakin ritual known as the Succession War. The Kakin king, his name is Nasubi Hui Goi Ro. I don't know, I'm going to butcher a lot of these names, I'm just going to call him the king. Anyways, he is polygamous and has multiple wives and multiple children. 8 wives that are legitimate anyways, and 14 children, and they all become important players in this arc. For you see, the Succession War is a ritual that allowed Kakin to become the powerful country that it is in the first place. And it involves taking all of the children of the current king and forcing them to kill each other off until only one remains, who will go on to be the next king of Kakin. But instead of it just being a battle royale of some sort, they must do it behind the scenes of the laws and of the people. As well, each prince is equipped with bodyguards that have various skills and knowledge that makes them harder targets, and on top of all of that, the succession contest has the incorporation of Nen involved with it, in the form of protective Nen Beast to accompany each prince, and here's how this works. So just before the voyage, the king gets all 14 of his children to agree to participate in the succession contest. Some agree for the thrill, others just to comply with their father's wishes, and some just because they're still children and don't know any better. As for why now is the time the king decided to have the contest, well, that's still unknown, but many theorize that it may have something to do with entering the Dark Continent itself. As we know, there is a gatekeeper there, so it might have something to do with some sort of sacrifice that is needed in order to enter the continent. But whatever the case, for the king, he seems to truly want somebody to be the rightful king of Kakin, and cites using the contest as a way to figure out who has what it takes to make the hard decisions a leader would need to make. The princes are all different in ages and genders, just all happen to be called prince regardless, but the ritual is started by each prince pricking their finger and entering a drop of blood into a sacred urn, an urn that is powered by Nen in some way and was said to have been conjured by the first Kakin king. Once the drop of blood is entered into the urn, and the prince accepts the terms of the war, smoke comes out of the top of the urn, and a small fairy-like creature inserts a sphere-like object into the mouth of each prince. It's unclear if they can literally see what is happening, but this in some way awakens the aura within them to take the form of a protective Nen Beast. So the prince themselves don't need to necessarily know about Nen or how to use it at all. Meeting the criteria of the ritual ensures that a protective Nen Beast will be created regardless of their knowledge of Nen. A Nen Beast is obviously a beast that is created by Nen. We've seen things like this before, like the Nen Exorcist that used a Nen Beast to remove a Nen bomb from his body. But unlike that Nen Beast, these ones that the princes have are not able to be controlled by them directly. They act of their own free will for the sole purpose of protecting their prince. And they don't have the power to attack in any direct kind of way. So it's not creating a beast to fight for you or something like that. It's a creature created by your own aura that you can't see or hear or anything, but one that sticks by your side and is unique to your own personality and tendencies. The king himself is revealed to have his own Nen Beast, assumingly one that helped him win his own succession war once before, and is still around even now. There's also a scene where we see the king in a room of the Black Whale ship, where there are 14 coffins arranged in a circle where the bodies will be placed once they die. There's also some kind of device in the center, and markings on the floor which seem to be similar to a type of Nen writing that we've seen before. Now, there's 14 coffins, but if there's a winner of the succession war, that means only 13 princes would die. So the 14th coffin could be for the king himself, dying in some kind of way to make way for the new king, or it could be for another sacrifice to ensure the dead princes don't haunt the current king, as that was an ancient part of the ritual in the Kakin Empire. And by haunt, I'm assuming it means something about Nen after death, which is a heavy theme during this arc, so perhaps the Nen Beasts would still be able to exist even after the princes are killed. So let's go through each contender in the Succession War contest and talk about their personality and their relation to Nen and the Succession War itself. First, we have the oldest prince, Prince Benjamin, and this dude is just massive, clearly spending a lot of time in the gym. He is jacked beyond all get out, and is first introduced in the manga by choking out a lion, and I believe this is without Nen. He's just an incredibly strong man, and rightfully so, as he's the advisor of the Kakin royal military and army. This guy is determined to be a great king and is 100% for the Succession War, looking forward to killing off all of his unworthy siblings, most particularly the fourth prince, Serenity. There seems to be some sort of embedded rivalry between the two, and both have actively made threats against the other. Benjamin is not only the physically strongest of all the princes, but he has the military under his belt. He already knows Nen before the Succession War contest has even started, most likely taught to him by his right-hand man, Balsamilko. This is a strong, stoic guy that seems to work as an advisor to Benjamin, and he kind of quells his rage and keeps Benjamin level-headed while making all of the right decisions. He's the guy behind the scenes. As for Benjamin's Nen, the type is unknown, but I would probably say it's a specialist, as he inherits Nen abilities from his loyal followers upon their death. He gets a star underneath each finger when this happens, so it's possibly he could hold up to 10 different abilities, should that many of his bodyguards die. I guess that would make him Ben 10. As of right now, he has 3. The first is unknown how it works, but it was from a bodyguard named Vincent, who Benjamin sent to assassinate the 14th Prince Wobble, but he was defeated by Kirapica and then killed himself by biting down on like a cyanide-like tablet in his mouth, poisoning himself. The second ability came from a bodyguard named Muse, who was killed by the second Prince Camilla when she attempted to break into Benjamin's quarters and assassinate him directly. This ability is a little owl that works like a surveillance camera attaching to a target. And the third ability came from Shikaku, where he creates a card that is supposed to be able to take another person's ability, probably for a one-time use kind of thing, but he was killed by 9th Prince Hulkenberg. Oddly enough, Hulkenberg's ability puts another person's soul into Shikaku's body, but that's a story for another time. As for Benjamin's Nen Beast, created by the Succession War, it sits perched on top of his shoulders and kind of looks like, a
giant dick.
Yeah.
Take a look out of starboard.
Oh my god, it looks like a huge
pecker!
But as of yet, we haven't seen what kind of ability his Nen Beast is capable of. My guess is that it's safe to assume if the beast thrives in protection, and since Benjamin is already one of the most protected princes out there, so perhaps it hasn't had a reason to do anything as of yet. As of right now in the story, Benjamin is buying his time and mostly taking the advice from Balsamilko. He has various bodyguards watching the other princes, and at the location where Kirapica is teaching Nen to other bodyguards who don't know how to use it yet. He was also responsible for getting both 2nd Prince Camilla and 9th Prince Hulkenberg detained and taking them away from the action. The second prince is a woman named Camilla. She definitely seems to enjoy the luxuries of life, being a prince and dressing extravagantly, and also has fully accepted and embraced the idea of the succession battle. At first, it seems like she doesn't want to get her hands dirty, and she especially seems to hate Prince Benjamin the most, and requests that he is the first to be killed. But she eventually takes matters into her own hands and goes to kill him directly. Which is not how the Succession War is supposed to go down, as it's all supposed to be covert and not out in the open so people wouldn't know about it. But it's here where we learn that Camilla also knows Nen, but has a very extreme and drastic ability. As Muse, one of Benjamin's bodyguards, tries to stop her, he is forced to shoot her and effectively kills her. But Nen becoming more powerful after death when a user has a strong conviction is a theme of this arc, and what happens is that Camilla's ability, again probably a specialist, is to resurrect herself if she is killed. A cat-like creature appears and takes the life of the person who killed her, and then transfers that life force into her body, reviving her. So it's not useful for combat in any way, but she effectively can't die if she is killed by somebody else. And this is just her Nen ability and has nothing to do with her actual Nen Beast. Her Nen Beast looks like a floating dress with some boobs on it, but also has yet to show its ability. But after Camilla's assassination attempt, both her and Benjamin were put under surveillance, and she has basically been quarantined ever since. As long as she stays alive, her ability is pretty much useless, I suppose, and Benjamin is keeping a close eye on her with Muse's Nen ability that he lost upon his death. Now, Camilla also has a group of Kakin people called the Untouchables under her belt. They're low-class citizens that were used for sacrifices for that afterlife companion thing to be buried with the deceased princess, so they won't haunt the living one. But since that part of the ritual was technically abolished, the Untouchables didn't have a place in society, so Camilla offered them to join her private guard. They're, as of right now, planning a curse on Prince Benjamin, and I'll get into all that in a future video. The third prince is Zhang Li. He seems to be much calmer than the first two princes and sees himself more as a diplomat. Though agreeing to the succession war, he is often maintaining the peace, but for his own personal gain, not for like the greater good of it all or anything. When awareness of the contest is let out by Kirapica, including the addition of Nen Beast, Zhang Li requests Kirapica to speak with since he doesn't know anything about Nen at all, and he agrees to send some of his own bodyguards to help Kirapica guard the 14th prince, kind of like a show of respect, and then also sends guards to train under Kirapica as he agrees to teach everyone's bodyguards how to use Nen. Zhang Li's Nen Beast is like a giant circular coin that seemingly randomly drops out coins onto the floor. Zhang Li cannot see the Nen Beast himself, but his guards can see the coins. Coins that have a number that have been slowly adding up for some kind of unknown purpose. So besides that, Zhang Li also has ties with one of the 3 mafia groups that are aboard the Black Whale ship, the CU family, a mafia group controlling the underground workings of Tier 4 of the Black Whale. Black Whale having 5 tiers in total, all the princes up on the top first tier. So ties with the Kakin Mafia adds a strong benefit of power when it comes to the princes. And Zhang Li definitely has an in with one of the 3 families. Okay, so now we get to the big one. 4th prince, Serenity, I guess is how you're supposed to pronounce it. I have no idea how you're supposed to pronounce this whack-ass name. But anyway, the character of Serenity is proving to be one of the scariest, darkest, and most intimidating forces ever to be seen in HunterXHunter. The first we see of this guy is that he has women brought to him where he seemingly shows to live a simple playboy lifestyle, but then effectively murders them for the sheer enjoyment of it. He views himself as this man of heightened intelligence and prowess, and is disgusted with lesser people, but it looks like more so specifically women who don't share his interests in the more sophisticated things in life. So much so that he straight up murders them like a serial killer. But the scary part about him is that he is incredibly intelligent and adaptable. He picks up information and knowledge at an almost superhuman level, and this is without any use of Nen. He has an obsession with learning about all of the highest qualities of life, but at the same time has a sadistic intrigue in the morbid, and besides killing people, even collects body parts, including the remaining eyes of the Kurta clan that Karapica belongs to, and assumingly a severed head of a character named Pyro, who was a childhood friend of Karapica's. He graciously accepts the succession contest, and as stated before, seems to have a very specific rivalry with Benjamin, who he seems very excited to kill. Once he hears the announcement about the Nen Beast, he is immediately curious about what Nen is, and is able to determine that 2 of his bodyguards are able to use it. He chooses the female guard, Theta, to teach him, and though Theta is loyal to the prince she serves, she is terrified of somebody like Serenity and his tendencies learning Nen. Because of that, she deliberately tries to train him as slowly as possible, but he picks everything up easily and naturally. During the water deviation test, Seri shows that he is a specialist as the water basically turns into a bubbling poison, representing his personality. Also, while training, he unknowingly creates a Nen Beast, and this is a different Nen Beast from the one granted to guard him through the ceremony. This is just his natural talent and ability taking form, and an ability unlocks as he puts himself into a state of Zetsu, and Theta decides that she will kill him, as Theta believes that he is too dangerous to master Nen. But his ability allows him to see 10 seconds into the future, and after he sees it, he is able to change that 10 seconds by moving or doing whatever he wants. And anyone looking at him will see the original 10 seconds and not the actual one happening where he's changing it. Does that make any sense? So Theta goes to shoot him and sees him shot and fall down, but then 10 seconds later he shows himself to be fine after stepping out of the way. Theta saw the original timeline and not the altered one, but instead of hating Theta or wanting her killed because of this, he kind of gets turned on by it. I think it's seeing a strong woman at his level and taking these dark measures. Whatever it is, he straight up remarks on how cute two-faced women are. Not in my experience, but, you know, whatever floats your boat, man. Now, I haven't even talked about his actual Nen Beast. It has the face of a woman, again, I think adding to his views towards women in general, and a four-legged deformed animal kind of body. We've seen his Nen Beast face through walls, and it also keeps a very close eye on Theta. In fact, twice now, the Nen Beast has seemed to scar or burn Theta's face. And I know I said that the Nen Beasts are only for protection, and we didn't actually see the beast scar her face directly, but both times the beast spoke to her and she woke up with face markings. The beast even telling her that if she keeps this up and keeps deceiving Serenity, that she will cease to exist as a human. And that's some crazy scary shit. Serenity is also the second prince to have a connection with the Mafia on board the ship. He is connected to the Zhang Li family. They control the third tier of the Black Whale, and they are led by someone looking to cause as much devastation as she possibly can, so in a way, her and Seri kind of go hand in hand. I'll cover all that and the Mafia stuff in a future video. People are most excited about Serenity's involvement in the story as he seems to be destined to meet with Kirapica since he holds the Kurta clan Ides. And if he does master Nen, he will perhaps be one of the top 5 deadliest Nen users to ever exist. Alright, so now the 5th prince, Tobepa, who is a woman, I think. Agreed to the succession war, though wanted to form an alliance with Serenity to take down the top 3 oldest princes, probably aware of how insane he is and wanted to use that to her benefit. But she's a scientist and a very smart, straightforward thinking kind of person. She doesn't know Nen herself, but upon hearing the announcement of the Nen Beast, sent some of her bodyguards to learn it with the rest of them. Her Nen Beast looks like a giant frog-like creature and is apparently capable of producing toxins and poisons in some way. I don't really know what else to say about her, as I don't recall her doing much more of that's of interest, but she is still around. The 6th prince, Tyson, a girl who is seemingly always happy and wants to win the succession war with love. She talks about unity and happiness and fairies and all the things that a little girl would like, even though she's supposed to be a bit older than how she looks and acts. Her Nen Beast is a floating heart that spits out little fairy-like things that attach to her followers. And she also gives out her own book that she wrote to them, just called, The Book of Tyson. The more you read the book, the more won over you are by her, and she constantly compliments and shares love, and it's like, as the love increases, so does the loyalty to Tyson herself. There's not a whole lot else to say about Tyson, she's just been spreading as much positivity as possible, and so far there doesn't seem to be anything sinister behind it, and she has not directly ordered any of her guards to go after any of the princes. Perhaps it's a lesson that we all just stay positive. Then we have 7th Prince, Loserus, the residential stoner of the group. This guy has been pretty carefree and lazy and has spent much of this arc just sitting around smoking some, herbs. When learning about the Nen Beast, he seems to have no interest in learning them himself, but does send some of his bodyguards to Karapica's training. The only target he's made mention of is Tobepa, but other than that, Loserus has been pretty docile. However, Loserus is the 3rd and final prince to have an affiliation with one of the Mafia groups. The one that he is in cahoots with is the Cha-R family, who runs the lowest tier 5 of the Black Whale. Loserus's Nen Beast looks like a giant worm or caterpillar type creature, and we haven't seen it used yet, but it's said that it can materialize what a target wants and then spring some kind of trap on them, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. 8th prince is Sully. This is a big, fat, gluttonous man that just embraces the fun side of life. He lays around laughing, eating, having a harem of women around him, and saying that he's going to change the world. Honestly, out of all their lifestyles, this guy's probably got it the best. He does not take the succession war seriously at all, but then it costs him. He does send some of his guard to the Nen training, but remains in his room with his fellow partiers. His Nen Beast is kind of similar to Tyson's, as it's this floating gaseous thing, and the more that you inhale the smoke from it, the more it manipulates you to like Sully. There's a lot more specifics to it, but that's the gist. So he spends pretty much the entire arc hanging out in his bed, and he is the 2nd prince to be killed. A bodyguard named Rihan, who originally worked for Benjamin and then for Tobepa, has a Nen ability that allows him to kill Sali's Nen Beast. As long as he knows every single criteria for a Nen ability, he can conjure his own Nen Beast to basically eat that ability. And it does. With Sali's Nen Beast gone and a guard shift change, he was ultimately killed by one of Benjamin's guards, Yoshohi. Easily choked out before he got to change the world. Poor guy. Alright, so then we get to 9th Prince Hulkenberg. I did a whole video dedicated to Hulkenberg, so check it out if you will. Link will also be in the description. He is my personal favorite of the princes. So Hulkenberg is just a very smart and skilled person. He went to a very high quality school and he was an archery master. He only agreed to the succession war to save face, but doesn't actually have any interest in murdering his siblings. Once the voyage begins, he tries several times to remove himself from the war or call it off entirely. He wishes to speak with his father, the king, several times, but is constantly denied, until he straight up walks in with a gun in hand and forces his way to see the king. He tells him he doesn't desire a bloody throne and that he refuses to go along with this barbaric ritual. But the king does not budge on the issue and even tells Hulkenberg that if he wants to end the succession contest, then become king and end it. A twisted way of teaching his son about making the hard choices for the greater good of Kakin. Hulkenberg is so determined to end the war that he attempts to shoot his own father in the face, but the bullet is stopped mid-air by the king's Nen Beast. Hulkenberg then tries to commit suicide, but again the bullet is stopped, this time by Hulkenberg's own Nen Beast, assuring that there is no way to truly stop the war, and with that dark realization, Hulkenberg awakens his own Nen ability and leaves his father with a new conviction that he will do what must be done. Hulkenberg awakens Nen on his own without any training and fires a possession arrow at Benjamin's bodyguard, Shikaku, wherein Hulkenberg stakes his life on making the shot, thus increasing its power and makes it unblockable if it hits. So in doing so, Hulkenberg can transfer the consciousness of one of his bodyguards or followers into the body of somebody else. In this case, he uses his guard, Sumadori's consciousness, and transfers it into Shikaku's. But Hulkenberg's still trying to figure out what happens to each person's consciousness during the exchange. He has Sumadori in Shikaku's body kill himself and then question Sumadori when he awakes if he is indeed back into his original body, and we don't really get an answer for this. As for Hulkenberg's Nen Beast, it's kind of like a Cyclops beast of some sort covered in feathers. Yeah, I don't know. But just like Benjamin's, it seems to always sit on top of his shoulders. A feather-like symbol has also been imprinted on all of Hulkenberg's bodyguards on their hands, and it seems as though when all of them conjure together, a massive surge of aura surrounds Hulkenberg. Again, suggesting that the more followers and the more loyalty that they have, the more powerful Hulkenberg becomes. Various members of the princes and hunters on the ship have felt the power surges coming from Hulkenberg. Fearing what could happen, Benjamin's right-hand man, Balsamilko, has Hulkenberg detained due to possible evidence of a bodyguard's murder. As of now, we don't know where Hulkenberg was taken to be detained, but we can assume that his followers will not take this lying down. For the 10th and 11th princes, we have twins, two girls, Kacho and Fugetsu. These two are very close to each other, and Kacho acts more like in the leadership type role between the two. She has agreed to the succession war and claims that when it's down to just her and Fugetsu, that she will find a way to let Fugetsu live. But as things get underway and the murders start happening, Kacho's plans start to change. She keeps herself held up into a room, unable to see Fugetsu, until a door appears and Fugetsu enters her room secretly. See, Fugetsu is more on the shy and quiet side of the two of them and looks up to Kacho as someone that she loves and respects. Fugetsu has been shown to be very kind and sweet and is terrified of the entire succession contest. Fugetsu's Nen Beast appears in the form of a door that mimics a childhood game of her and Kacho's. The door can transport her like a wormhole to various locations, once to Kacho's room and then another time to the third tier of the Black Whale where she had to be retrieved and brought back to tier 1. The door becomes undetectable as soon as Fugetsu closes it, but she can go back through it provided that she does not step out of the tunnel. On the other hand, coming out of the tunnel through the hatch causes the return door to appear, which leads to a destination of Kacho's choice. This door can only be opened by Kacho, so their abilities really work with one another. So one of Kacho's bodyguards is Melody, and she strikes a deal with her that could allow her and Fugetsu to escape the succession contest altogether. At one of the banquets, Melody uses her Nen ability while she plays on her flute. It goes over the speakers of the entire ship and puts everybody into a trance-like state for just a few minutes. Thanks to Melody and another bodyguard named Kini, who agrees to take the fall for the escape so that Melody wouldn't have to, allows Kacho and Fugetsu to reach a lifeboat and escape the ship. But before they get too far, dark spirit-like hands start to flood into the escape ship, proving that either you can't step out of a certain bounds for the Succession War, or it's just simply inescapable altogether. Fugetsu's Nen Beast activates, and through the door she is able to go back into the ship, but then she waits for Kacho, and, well, the real Kacho did not make it. Her body floats on the lifeboat dead. Truly one of the saddest moments of the arc, and Kacho's Nen Beast was activated upon her death. It was set to take the form of either Kacho or Fugetsu, whoever died first, and her Nen Beast would then help guide the other one. So, Kacho's Nen Beast now takes the form of Kacho herself and arrives in front of Fugetsu, but Fugetsu believes this to be the real Kacho, which is even sadder, and I'm sure she will eventually figure out that it's not when she realizes that nobody can see this version of Kacho besides herself. 12th Prince Momose. Don't expect much from her. We don't really get a good sense of her personality, as she's barely in the story. She basically serves as a catalyst for, oh yeah, the Succession War is real, because she is the first to be killed off, and it's pretty much as soon as the voyage starts. Before that, we do get to see her Nen Beast, though. It's a big mouse-like thing that can send out smaller creatures to manipulate guards, and is also the reason why Kirapica found out about the Succession War and let everybody knew about it happening in the first place. Mose was tired due to her using her Nen Beast, although she was unaware of it, and then she was killed in her sleep by one of her bodyguards, a guy named Tufty. He was just looking to get in good with whoever was on their way to become king. He used a Nen ability where a doppelganger version of himself went in to kill her. Ironically, he is discovered and killed by Hanzo, who also has a doppelganger ability, and he managed to get revenge as he was another guard for Momose, and he was trying to make up for his failure of allowing her to get killed. 13th Prince Maryam, not to be confused with Meruem. Maryam is a very young boy, and his personality is just like an average kid. He plays games, plays with toys, and just kind of hangs out. He should not be part of a crazy murder contest. His Nen Beast has gotten bigger and bigger over time, and as they are meant for protection, it seems to have implemented a very interesting development. It has taken Maryam's room and created like an alternate version of it. So anyone that tries to enter it from the outside will enter into an identical room, but nobody will be in there. Sort of like a small pocket dimension or something. As of right now, Maryam has just been kind of hanging out, and he does have hunters both Hanzo and Biscuit working for him now as part of his bodyguard team. And finally, we get to 14th Prince Wobble. Literally a baby girl, and thus Wobble doesn't have any interest or personality in the succession contest. But her mother does, one of the queens, Oito. And I know I haven't talked about the queens at all because, well, this video would just be way too long than it already is, but also Oito is the only one that really matters in the scheme of the story. As well, Wobble's fate revolves around her bodyguards, one being Kirapica, and as the sea voyage starts, several bodyguards in Wobble's room are killed. Upon learning about the succession contest, Kirapica theorizes maybe Wobble's Nen Beast is acting instinctively, but we haven't seen so far in the story Wobble's Nen Beast, or at least are aware of it being used. Once one of Benjamin's bodyguards, Vincent, shows up to assassinate Wobble and Kirapica puts him down, it is then decided to make knowledge of the Succession War public and try to cause a stalemate. Thus, Kirapica agrees to teach all of the bodyguards Nen if they so choose. While that's been going on, Wobble has been in the care of its mother, Queen Oito. And that is what the Succession War is all about, and a summary of all 14 princes that are involved, including their Nen Beast and what they have been up to so far. I really hope this clears some things up, refreshes some memories, or at least was entertaining in some form to watch. So I want you to tell me in the comments below, who are your favorite princes in the Succession War, and who is your pick to win? Or how do you feel it will end, since I'm sure Togashi won't give us a direct ending with just one winner. I don't feel like that's his style. But just the same, tell me your favorite prince down below. Welcome back, everybody, to my Succession War arc recap series, to break down the current arc of Hunter x Hunter and give you a solid recap and perhaps a better understanding of everything going on, as the chapters are massively dialogue heavy and the hiatuses are brutal. It's very easy to forget what is happening in one of the most jam-packed and information-heavy storylines Togashi has ever done. I will remind everybody that if you haven't watched Part 1 and Part 2, the links will be down in the description below. Go ahead and watch them. You don't necessarily have to watch them in that order. I just kind of split it up with the different storylines that are going on, so you can kind of recap one at a time and then put them all together on your own. Anyway, in this edition, we are going to be taking a look at Hisoka, Crolo, and the Phantom Troop to see what they have been up to during the Succession War arc. Yes, believe it or not, even with all of the Dark Continent information and all 14 princes waging war on one another with the Nen Beast, Togashi had the motherfucking brass balls to say, you know what? I'm gonna put the spiders in here too. Fuck it. And it all kicks off in chapter 351 with one of the most abrupt cutaways in the history of Hunter x Hunter, and maybe in manga itself. After spending an entire volume of build-up about the voyage to the Dark Continent and what it could all entail, we flash to Heaven's Arena of all places, a location that we haven't seen since, well, the Heaven's Arena arc. You know, way back after the Hunter exam where Gon and Killua went to get stronger and earn some cash, where we learned about Nen for the first time and where the iconic Gon versus Hisoka fight actually took place. Heaven's Arena is a huge skyscraper of a building that has many tiers for some of the world's most strongest fighters to test their strength and skill against one another. And it also just so happens to be the place where Hisoka and Crolo have agreed to have their duel. The Hisoka-Crolo rivalry was set up back in the York New City arc, where Hisoka joined the Phantom Troop for the purpose of getting close enough to Crolo to challenge him to a fight, because Hisoka lives for the thrill and fun and other things of facing the strongest guys that he can possibly find. But when Hisoka was ready to fight him, Crolo was unable to use his Nen due to Karapika's judgment chain. Since Crolo would have been severely underpowered, Hisoka chose not to fight him then, and instead went in search of a Nen exorcist to take the curse off of Crolo, then allowing him to use Nen again and for them to have their battle. The exorcist was found during the Greed Island arc, and since then we haven't heard any word of, well, how it went. Well, apparently Crolo had been giving Hisoka the runaround until now, until he was finally ready to fight him. Eventually, they must have agreed upon the arena, and Crolo even became a floor master. It's one of those things where at first it feels so out of place with the current arc, but then we've been waiting for this fight for so long that you just get to it, and then after that immediate shock and story change, you're just kind of like, hell yeah, let's do it. And guys, I'm not shitting you, this fight delivers. This is one of the best fights in all of Hunter x Hunter, and I actually go so far as to put it as my number 2, just under the Netero versus Meruem fight. Honestly, if this fight never gets animated, it will be a goddamn shame against all of humanity. So here's the gist. I'm not going to run by a play-by-play of the entire fight and break the entire thing down for you, but I'm just going to give you kind of the overall idea of what is happening here. So we know Crolo can steal abilities from other people and collects them in a book that he conjures called the Skill Hunter. And he took specific abilities in order to defeat Hisoka. First, he took 2 abilities from other Phantom Troop members. Shalnark's Black Voice, which allows him to control somebody's actions if he can pin them with an antenna. And Cordope's Gallery Fake, where he can make an identical copy of someone or something. He also showcases new abilities that we haven't seen so far. One is called Sun and Moon, 2 marks that he can place on someone or something, and if the marks touch each other, they will then explode like a bomb. Also, Order Stamp, which is similar to Black Voice, but it can control a large amount of copies as long as the command is simple. And lastly, Convert Hands. When activated, if Crolo touches somebody with his right hand, they will then look like Crolo, and if he touches somebody with his left hand, Crolo will then look like them. Crolo also has upgraded his Skill Hunter book to have a bookmark component, meaning that he is able to use 2 abilities at the same time instead of just 1. And he will cycle through all of these during the battle. Hisoka, on the other hand, has, well, bungee gum, which has the properties of both rubber and gum, in case you didn't know that. So Crolo's strategy is basically to keep his distance, create copies of people in the crowd, order stamp those copies to break Hisoka, and then stay far enough away and change his form as often as possible so Hisoka can't find him or catch up with him. And while Hisoka is fighting the manipulated crowd, Crolo will drop in quickly for critical hits. It's as insane as it sounds, and it's such a wild ride to read. Now, some people would argue that since Crolo had so much prep time, that of course he would wreck Hisoka in a fight. But the fact of the matter is, both parties agreed to the terms beforehand, and Hisoka wants to fight Crolo at his best, knowing full well Crolo can cycle through these abilities. Crolo gave Hisoka exactly what he wanted, and the insane thrill of battle overtakes them both. We are in Hisoka's perspective throughout the entire fight, which adds to the tension and suspense of which abilities Crolo has active at which times, and the fear of when he will strike next. As Hisoka has to continuously fight the manipulated people Crolo goes after, it gives Crolo more time to stamp even more people, and we eventually have almost the entire arena crowd ganging up on Hisoka. Crolo is using the entire floor to fight him, and Hisoka begins to rip them apart in any way that he can. And the great thing about having two villains fight each other is that neither of them gives a flying shit about the innocent bystanders. So everyone is fair game to be killed. Seeing Hisoka tear his way through the crowd is such a beautiful sight to see, puppets or not. Unfortunately, the only hit Hisoka gets on Crolo is when he attaches bungee gum to a severed head and then uses that head to bash Crolo in the side and upside the head. But eventually, Crolo basically marks the entire crowd, steals the announcer's mic, and gives the command to everybody to break Hisoka. Hisoka just starts grabbing body after body with his bungee gum and then crashes them into each other, breaking bones, cutting off limbs. Everything is fair game. The problem is that Sun and Moon ability, where a body explodes when the marks are touched. Well, apparently, even if the head has been decapitated from the body, it still counts as part of the body. So while Hisoka grabs the severed head, Crolo causes the body to explode, as does the head and Hisoka's entire hand that he was holding it with. After that, things go really bad for Hisoka. Crolo had the time to put more Sun and Moon marks on people, and they all start blowing themselves up in Hisoka's face. Crolo even picks up and chucks bodies at Hisoka himself, so that he doesn't have time to activate more bungee gum. Eventually, Hisoka falls and is dogpiled by the crowd, who all then touch their Sun and Moon marks together, causing a gigantic explosion, destroying the entire floor of the arena. And with that, Hisoka is dead. Like, seriously, really dead. But one of the biggest themes of this arc is Nen after death, the idea that a conviction so strong could still persist after one's body dies in the form of Nen. It's like how much will you put into your own energy. In the concept of the Prince Succession War, we have the idea that the losers might haunt the winner. Well, Crolo explained that the Sun and Moon ability actually came from somebody who desired to protect Meteor City, and it was a desire so strong that even after he died, his ability remained in Crolo's Skill Hunter book. Normally, a person dying means that Crolo would lose that ability, and that sparked an idea in Hisoka's head, how strong his own Nen would be after he died. And so as he was falling into the crowd, he commanded his bungee gum to pump his heart and his lungs if he were to die. And it works. Machi of the Phantom Troop was there to stitch Hisoka up as he paid her to do so, but he shockingly comes to life right before her eyes. He uses Texture Surprise to fix his face, but honestly, I really wish Togashi would have left Hisoka looking like this, all deformed, because I think it's terrifying, especially combined with Hisoka's personality. It would be similar to in DC Comics when Joker had his face cut off and then he basically just stitched it back on himself. I don't know, I just think it would be great to keep Hisoka like this, but whatever the case, Hisoka is back, and due to his crushing defeat, he suddenly finds a new motive. He binds Machi up with a bungee gum, and instead of this going in a kinky new direction that I was hoping for, he says that he's letting her live to inform the Phantom Troop that he is going to kill every single one of them on sight with no mercy. And this isn't like Hisoka. Despite being a homicidal madman, Hisoka has always wanted a good fight and a challenge. Perhaps due to his defeat here with Crolo, it struck a chord within his own ego. He believed that he could do it, but he failed, and now he wants to wound Crolo in the deepest way that he possibly can, killing the Phantom Troop, as that would be killing all Crolo has. It's basically his family. And we've seen that despite Crolo's disdain for humanity at large, he does care deeply for his troop members. And this isn't all talk. So as noted before, Crolo was using Shalnark and Cordoby's abilities in the fight. That means that both of them willingly gave them up and are currently without them. Hisoka refused to fight Crolo before because he couldn't use his Nen. For revenge, or for the blow to his own ego, or for both, Hisoka finds both Shalnark and Cordoby nearby and straight up beheads Cordoby and then kills Shalnark as well, hanging him up on a swing set for the crows to eat. It's insane and shows that this is a new path for Hisoka. Now, how does all this tie into the succession war itself? Well, hearing the news that the Kakin king was leading an expedition to the new continent, Crolo had already decided that he and the troop would stow away on board the ship and use it as an opportunity to steal the riches that were on board. They do manage to get onto the ship, but when Crolo finds out about the death of Shalnark and Cordoby, the priorities quickly change. The entire troop gathers on the lowest tier of the ship. The ship has 5 tiers, the lowest being the poorer members it seems, and the very top tier holds the Kakin princes themselves. Also, 3 of the tiers are monitored by the 3 mafia groups of Kakin that are also on board, and it's mostly them limiting people from moving between the tiers, but I'll get to that in a moment. So let's recap our current troop members. Obviously we have Crolo, then Nobunaga, Franklin, Machi, Bonolanov, Thinx, Phaeton, Shizuku, and 2 members of the Zoldyck family. Kaluto, who joined earlier, and now also Illumi of all people. Illumi has joined the troop because, get this, Hisoka has actually hired him to kill him. And so Hisoka has seemingly now turned on everybody and pitted them all against him at the same time. And according to them, Hisoka is somewhere on the ship as well, and the troop's mission is to track down and kill him. Some people believe that Illumi is still working with Hisoka and will be feeding him details on the troop the entire time. And this could be true, as we've seen them keep in good communication before, but it also isn't out of character for Hisoka to just say fuck it and challenge Illumi too. We will just have to wait and see. The idea is to split up and find him. But as I said, the tiers are blocked by the 3 mafia groups, though this does not intimidate the troop at all. Shizuku and Bonolanov request to join Crolo in his search because they believe that their abilities wouldn't fare well against Hisoka one-on-one. They somehow manage to make their way to tier 4 in almost no time. Franklin decides to stay on tier 5, with the logic being if Hisoka is looking for them, so if he just stays here, then Hisoka will show up sooner or later. Machi is still on tier 5 as well, though we haven't seen what she's up to. Illumi and Kaluto make it up to tier 3 and are discovered by Mizaystom. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he's one of the Zodiacs of the Hunter Association. He recognizes who they are, and Illumi just blurts out that, oh yeah, the entire troop is on board. Mizaystom tells them to go register a room if they wish to remain on tier 3, and then wrestles with the idea of whether or not he should tell Kirapica that they are here. Not knowing anything about Hisoka being here, Mizaystom wonders if the troop is here specifically for Kirapica. The irony being, the troop has no idea that Kirapica, the chain user responsible for killing Uvogen and removing Crolo's Nen in the first place, is also on board the ship. And that's what's so great about this arc. All these moving pieces and the fact that at any time someone might find out something or encounter someone that will change everything that's happening. Lastly, we have Thinx, Phaeton, and Nobunaga, who are heading towards the ship's warehouse to retrieve Nobunaga's sword and Phaeton's umbrella. They are also on tier 5. A tier controlled by the Cha-R Mafia group, one of the 3 and associated with the 7th prince, Loserus. They make their presence known to the Cha-R and are let into the warehouse only to have a Cha-R member disappear and then reappear dead right in front of them with no explanation. And the troop, they don't really care. They conclude that someone is picking a fight with the Cha-R family and not with them specifically. And then more of the Cha-R show up, and then they request to work with the Phantom Troop. They start to spark a negotiation. The troop wants to get to tier 4 to look for Hisoka. Tier 4 is controlled by the 2nd mafia group, the CU family, which is connected to the 3rd prince, Zhang Li. Thinx, Phaeton, and Nobunaga are like, okay, how about we kill the assassin that's after the Cha-R family, and then they give them contact with the CU family. But the Cha-R group tells them that it's more complicated than that, for they believe that Morena, the leader of the 3rd and final mafia group controlling tier 3, the Li Mafia, which are connected to 4th Prince Serenity, they think that Marina has ordered her men to wage war on the other 2 mafia groups and kill them off. And the thing is, Well, they're right. Morena is a character that I'll get to in part 5 of the recap series, but she is just looking to cause as much absolute chaos as she possibly can, even promising to give her men Nen abilities if they kill enough people aboard the ship. As the Cha-Ar group try to explain the intricacies of how the Mafia is supposed to conduct themselves if this were to happen, Thinx and the others just bluntly tell them to find Morena, and they will kill her for them, solving the issue and then allowing them to access the upper tiers. So yes, during the succession war between the princes, a battle between the 3 Mafia groups has also begun simultaneously. Like I said, I'll go into detail in all of that in part 5. But now the troop, or at least 3 of the members, have decided to just eradicate a whole Mafia group and make things easier for them. And it's not like the troop hasn't taken on the Mafia before in different arcs. But as of now, we have yet to see Thinx and the others take them on. We also haven't seen Crolo or any of the others since the troop split up. And yes, multiple murders are happening behind the scenes with Morena's followers. Also, we haven't seen Hisoka once on the ship, leaving some people to speculate that he might not actually even be here at all and is pulling the biggest trolling of his entire career. I do believe that Hisoka will show up at some point in this arc, but maybe not until near its conclusion. There's also Kirapica's involvement up on Tier 1 and his potential to find out about the troop. As well, Morena and her Mafia group are directly connected to Serenity, who Kirapica also wants to meet and who is shaping up to be one of the most terrifying Nen users of all time. The potential future of all these moving pieces is going to cause an explosion bigger than Heaven's Arena, and I personally can't wait for HunterXHunter to finally return someday and for us to see more of the Phantom Troop's involvement. Because if you ask me, they have not been in this arc enough, and they always light up the scenes whenever they show up. Kirapica, a fan-favorite HunterXHunter character and one that won the hearts of many during the first half of the series. A man who thrived on his independence, intelligence, and thirst for revenge. Who was introduced wanting to become a hunter in order to find the right information and be part of the right circles that would lead him to an encounter with the Phantom Troop. A group of tight-knit, malicious thieves responsible for murdering the Kurta clan, whom Kirapica was a part of. A group of people that separated themselves from the society at large and lived peacefully doing their own thing in their own way. The only difference besides the lifestyle and culture were the signature scarlet eyes of the Kurta clan. How their eyes would change color when they were in a state of heightened emotion. It was a rare, unique, and beautiful thing. Too beautiful, as their eyes were literally sought after as treasure. And whether they were hired to do so or decided to on their own, the Phantom Troop murdered every single Kurta member and stole their eyes. All except for Kirapica, who was away during the massacre. Throughout the first half of the series, we see Kirapica make great strides and progress in his goal of revenge. When we see him become a hunter, learn Nen, and get hired on as a bodyguard, and then face down the Phantom Troop themselves. But though he managed to kill one and place his judgment chain on the leader Crolo, his mission was left unfinished. But perhaps this was for the betterment of his state of mind. After all, it was the friendship of Gon, Killua, and Leorio, and their efforts to help Kirapica that snapped him out of the dark path of vengeance that was corrupting him. After the York New City arc, Kirapica decided he would instead search for the eyes of his clan, collecting all of them and getting them out of the hands of the greedy or those who didn't respect where they came from. And after that, Kirapica wasn't heard from again for 3 entire arcs of the series. In the manga, he was gone for practically 17 to 18 volumes worth of content, and that's pretty crazy considering he was introduced as part of the main cast. But that's also part of the fun and uniqueness of HunterXHunter as a series. The entire reason our team of 4 are even friends in the first place has to do with them sharing the experience of the Hunter exam together. They went through a life-changing, once-in-a-lifetime experience, and that created an unbreakable bond. But that doesn't mean that they all have the same things that they want to get done in life, and after that experience was over, they each moved forward with their own goals. The story thus far has primarily focused on Gon, and his story brought him very far away from Kirapica, and so fans of the blonde chain boy had to sit and wait for a very long time for his return, and anime fans had to accept that they would never see him again. Seriously, that bastard never picks up his phone for anything. But after the election arc, Togashi pulled a huge switch in the story. After following Gon's adventures since its incarnation, Gon was now removed from the primary focus of the story, the Dark Continent. Gon back on Whale Island and without Nen, and even separated from his partner in crime Killua, It was the perfect time now to bring back Kirapica, and he plays as the audience's known entity to enter the story with, and it carries out excellently. After the announcement is made that the Kakin Empire is leading an expedition to the Dark Continent, and check out parts 1 through 3 of this recap series for all of that information. But anyway, like all good things in life, it starts with Leorio, and he is asked to join the Zodiacs to accompany them on the trip to the Dark Continent on their medical team. Leorio accepts and then requests one more person be brought onto the Zodiacs, which would bring it back to 12 members. Even though he was unable to contact Kirapica himself, he suggests him for a member of the Zodiacs. The Zodiac member Mizaistam tracks down and locates Kirapica. Kirapica is reintroduced looking like a freaking badass in this black suit, which is my favorite look for him throughout the entire series. Kirapica has no interest in the Dark Continent itself, but in order to get him to join, Mizaistam reveals the information that the remaining Kurta clan eyes actually belong to the 4th Kakin prince, Serenity. And I'm going to say that name wrong for the rest of my life, I'm sure. But the 4th prince will be on the voyage. There's also a leading theory that Serenity not only has the remaining eyes of the Kurta clan, but also the severed head of Kirapica's childhood friend Pyro. This has yet to be confirmed, but it seems it might be pretty apparent in this image. Kirapica accepts the Zodiac position and admits that all he cares about is retrieving the last of his eyes, though he is unaware that Serenity is also a sadistic murderer who views himself at a level of sophistication above the average man, and as well would go on to learn Nen and develop some terrifying abilities. Watch part 2 of the recap series for all that info. But anyway, Kirapica meets up with the other Zodiacs as they prepare for the journey, and he is able to determine that Seiyu, one of the Zodiacs, is most likely working for Beyond Netero, who was supposed to serve as a guide for the Kakin Empire and also allowed himself to be captured by the Zodiacs for the duration of the journey. As well, Kirapica helps them conduct the Hunter exam of that year, which would mean 2 years have passed since the beginning of the series, just throwing that in there, and he uses his dowsing chain during this exam. The Hunter exam was mostly off-screen, but it was decided that they would only pass people that were useful for the journey to the Dark Continent, and the dowsing chain allowed Kirapica to weed out the liars and a few members of Beyond Netero's actual team. And Kirapica is also the catalyst for the Zodiacs all agreeing to share their abilities with one another. As well, knowing Seiyu's ability might be helpful when Beyond decides to escape his holding cell. After that, Kirapica gets word that 6 of the 14 Kakin princes are hiring extra bodyguards for the voyage, and he sees this as the perfect opportunity to get as close as he can to Serenity. Also, Kirapica doesn't know which of the 6 are looking for bodyguards as it's all anonymous, but he decides that he will have a better chance at getting to Serenity if he can infiltrate all 6. So he gathers 5 more members, 5 hunters, to be recruited as the other bodyguards. And we get the return of a lot of characters here. First we get Basho and Melody, whom Kirapica was partners with during the York New City arc, so it's great to see them back. We also get Izuvani, which is the guy that taught Kirapica Nen, but he practically hasn't done anything in the series up until this point. Hanzo returns, who hasn't been here since the very first Hunter exam arc, so it's very cool to see him back. And we also get Biscuit. And look, I love Biscuit as a character, but she's the only one of the group here who has had no interaction with Kirapica beforehand, and Kirapica actually hired her due to an off-screen recommendation by Killua. And I love how, to win her over, he takes Killua's advice and calls her a delicate flower or a pretty princess, causing her to get all smitten on him. It's fantastic. The team decides which of the 6 that they'll apply for, not knowing who they are, and Kirapica picks the one that he believes is 9th Prince Hulkenberg, thinking that by doing so, Hulkenberg is close with Serenity, so it might lead him to be able to get in contact with him. But when Kirapica arrives, he realizes the ad was actually for 14th Prince Wobble, who is still just a baby, and the ad was placed by her mother, Oito. Here she reveals to Kirapica the details of the Succession War, how all 14 princes are meant to kill each other off until only one remains, and how she fears for her child's life. Of course, she is unaware of the Nen Beast aspect of the contest at this point, but Kirapica is won over by her, and holding Wobble in his arms, we get a direct sense of that innocence that has been lost within Kirapica himself, and he agrees to keep this child safe during the voyage. But it isn't long after the ship sets sail that things begin to go wrong. Another bodyguard of Wobble's is found dead, seemingly like all the blood was drained out of his body. Kirapica immediately understands that it must have been done with Nen, but the other bodyguards play dumb as to what Nen is. Some know about it and some don't. But after more bodies are found, Kirapica draws his gun on the remaining guards. Now, some people wonder why Kirapica is using a gun at all, but I mean, he's a bodyguard. It makes sense for him to have one. Also, his Nen ability isn't exactly suited for combat with people other than the Phantom Troop specifically, and having a gun is just another form of protection and makes sense with the whole protocol of being a bodyguard thing. It never seemed weird to me. But anyway, the whole idea here with the bodyguards is that the ones that are part of the Kakin country are all assigned to protect particular princes from other queens, which means that though they are bodyguards, they also serve as informants and take orders from others. So during a succession war, this is a good way to sneak in assassins. One of the guards lets it slip that it's an ancient ritual that was involved in the succession war that activated the Nen in each of the princes, or more specifically, a protective Nen Beast. As Kirapica is attacked by yet another bodyguard named Serenity, he showcases a new ability. So we know Kirapica conjures chains to use, one on each finger of his right hand. We've seen the dowsing chain, which we talked about earlier, chain jail that is only effective against the Phantom Troop, the holy chain, which heals injuries, and the judgment chain, which he gives a command they must adhere to. The latter two abilities only being usable while his eyes are scarlet. This is when Kirapica becomes a specialist. This is called Emperor Time, which is incredibly powerful, but also has the drawback of every second that Emperor Time is activated, Kirapica loses 1 hour of his lifespan. And in this arc, Emperor Time is in effect quite often. But anyway, his final chain ability is finally revealed here, and it's called Steel Chain. It's a syringe on the end of a chain that he stabs into a target and steals their Nen ability. From there, Kirapica is able to use it once, or while activating Emperor Time, he is able to inject it into another person who then can use it once also. The transference, however, also has a side effect of awakening somebody's Nen if they've never used Nen before. For example, he steals the ability of Serenity and holds on to it. But when another bodyguard named Vincent arrives under the orders of First Prince Benjamin, Kirapica acts fast by injecting Serenity's ability into Queen Oito and quickly using the steel chain again on Vincent to take away his Nen. But Vincent then kills himself quickly as to not be taken prisoner. But the problem is, since Kirapica transferred an ability to Oito, that means his Emperor Time stays in effect until she uses it and then it's deactivated. Which means this entire time, Kirapica is losing literal hours of his life for every second. The ability that she has now is to control a small animal or insect, so until they find one, they are shit out of luck. And the problem here is that Kirapica keeps getting distracted, whether it's by phone calls from the princes, or Nen, or what the Nen Beasts are, or more bodyguards showing up at his door, like this guy whose name I can't pronounce, called Baminyana or something like that. I don't know, but he's another one of First Prince Benjamin's guards, who is meant to replace Vincent, but not be as reckless about it. When they finally find a cockroach that they could use the ability on, Kirapica is surrounded by other guards whom he doesn't want to reveal that Oito has this ability. But his life is literally draining as he speaks, so he comes up with a cool plan to showcase Nen. He has another bodyguard named Bill pretend to attack the cockroach with Nen, while Oito is really the one that's doing it. Only it leads to the cockroach traveling the air ducts and witnessing the death of 12th Prince Momose, which causes Oito to panic, almost blowing the entire scheme. And soon after that, Kirapica passes out from exhaustion, since his Emperor Time has been using his aura this entire time. He wakes up later realizing that Emperor Time is still in play and has been active for 12 hours. Now, someone should do the math on that because I flunked math hard and I can't figure it out accurately. Where's Knuckle when you need him? But 1 hour for every 1 second, and it's been on for 12 hours, so how many hours or days of his life has he lost? Anyway, after waking up, of course he pleads with Oito to deactivate the ability, but only once they check on 4th Prince Serenity, to which Oito questions Kirapica's intentions and if he really wishes to protect Prince Wobble. He assures her that he will, and with that, they send the cockroach back into the air ducts to check on the 4th Prince, but the 4th Prince's Nen Beast devours the cockroach before it has a chance to look into his room. So they weren't able to gather any information, but finally Emperor Time is turned off and Kirapica's whole body shivers at the expense of his ability. And I have a feeling this will play a pivotal role in the arc continuing, as well the idea of Kirapica losing part of his life. The Succession War arc may be the chain user's final hurrah in everything. There are many signs pointing to the idea that Kirapica's end is coming up here. So the whole next idea here is Kirapica thinks that the only way to stop or at least subdue or slow down the madness is going to make the Succession War and the use of Nen public knowledge. This way, everyone would be on high alert, and with the awareness of Nen Beast attached to the succession contest, it would cause more hesitation in others attacking. And to keep things in a stalemate, he offers to teach the bodyguards from each prince how to use Nen. He plans to do this for the duration of the voyage to keep things at a standstill. But as soon as he begins his teachings, one guard is already killed by an ability called Silent Majority, whom we still don't know who the user is. Nevertheless, this does not stop the other guards from wanting to learn this power too, to protect their respective princes. Since then, Karapika has basically been playing teacher, conversing with and arguing with different guards as he attempts to keep everyone on the same page. To awaken the aura nodes of those individuals who don't know Nen, he again uses his steel chain. The bodyguard Bill has kind of become Karapika's right-hand man in all of this, and he is an enhancer that can accelerate the growth of other living things. A rare case of an enhancer creating an ability to help others rather than to enhance something about himself. Kirapica takes Bill's ability with the steel chain, and then injects it into various bodyguards trying to learn Nen. They then use the ability for the water deviation test, and then deactivate it. And it's a quick way to get all of the trainees' aura nodes awakened, rather than having the individual attention that they would need otherwise. So at this point in the story, Kirapica still hasn't come in contact with 4th Prince Serenity, who has been learning Nen on his own and becoming a terrifying force of nature in the process. Kirapica is unaware of this, and he is also unaware of the fact that the remaining Phantom Troop members have stowed away on the ship. Kirapica has not seen the troops since the York New City arc, and they are all conveniently on this ship, meaning his quest for vengeance might return if he finds out this information. Zodiac member Mazaistam has found out this information and has been questioning with himself whether or not to let Kirapica know. But besides that, I'll briefly go over now what has happened with Kirapica's other team of bodyguards. So Izunavi becomes the bodyguard of 6th Prince Tyson. She seems to take quite the liking to him, and she gives him her book, The Book of Tyson, which wins others over when they read it with Nen, but he didn't really read it. He also performed a rock song at one of the banquets, and Tyson seemed to be a big fan. Basho guards 7th Prince Loserus, who is the residential stoner of all the princes, and the two sit around and smoke some herbs together, which is pretty chill. Basho even presents him with an herb that Loserus wonders if he could use to help rehabilitate drug addicts. Also, I guess Basho was in a rap battle? Yeah. And then Basho witnesses firsthand one of Benjamin's guards, under the control of one of Hulkenberg's guards, shoot himself in the head outside their room. It had nothing to do with Basho or Loserus really, but Hulkenberg was just testing his own Nen ability, but it definitely left Basho on high alert, sensing the power surges coming from Hulkenberg. Now Hanzo becomes Prince Momose's guard, but she is the first prince to be killed, strangled in her sleep by an unknown assailant. And Hanzo takes this pretty hard, feeling like a failure, and he joins Biscuit in protecting the 13th Prince Maryam. One night, Hanzo showcases his Nen ability, the ability to make an astral projection version of himself that can roam around freely. And he confronts a guard named Tufty, who actually worked for Momose but killed her anyway in an attempt to get in good with whoever the winning prince was. Hanzo finds this out and then strangles him in revenge. When Hanzo returns to Maryam's room, he discovers the prince's Nen Beast is able to create a duplicate room that is seemingly empty in order to protect the prince. And it's all pretty confusing to him. Biscuit is assigned to Maryam from the start, and when they realize what's going on with Maryam's Nen Beast creating an alternate version of the room that they're in, a bodyguard named Virgie doesn't believe them about Nen or its seemingly magical abilities. So Biscuit transforms into her true self in front of his eyes, and seeing her gigantic bodybuilder looking self, Virgie gets pretty thirsty for them muscles. Hey, everyone's got a type. And finally, Melody. Oh boy, Melody. So Melody winds up guarding 10th Prince Kacho, the twin sister of 11th Prince Fugetsu, and Kachu devises a plan to help her and her sister escape the succession war. Melody, being the sympathetic and empathic character that she is, agrees to help. So at the banquet, Melody plays a song with her flute that entrances everybody on the ship within the power of music for a few minutes, allowing Kacho and Fugetsu to get into a lifeboat and flee. Unfortunately, due to whatever kind of Nen rules that exist with the succession battle, Kacho pays the ultimate price for this. And after her event with the flute, 4th Prince Serenity wishes to have an audience with Melody about it. And this is the scariest part to me, because Melody can read heartbeats, so can you imagine what she's going to feel when she meets the psychopathic murderer that is Serenity? I'm seriously so scared for Melody in the upcoming chapters, if we ever get any. So right now things are in a stalemate with the murder slowing down thanks to Karapica's quick action and foresight. However, Kirapica has made plenty of mistakes so far, not the least of which being the Emperor Time scenario. And with the themes and ideas of this arc revolving a lot around Nen after death, and there have been plenty of clues that Kirapica's story is perhaps leading to his death, so that might play a role of what happens when Kirapica dies. If his vengeance would be strong enough to still attack the Phantom Troop after his death, I don't know. Or if learning about the Phantom Troop would cause him to go into full rage mode and abandon his duty as a bodyguard to Wobble. Regardless, there is a lot revolving around him and his character, and his fate in this arc, as he has yet to truly interact with any of the major players. But just the same, he serves as a great focal point for taking in the madness that is the Succession War. My only question now is, where the hell is Leorio? Bring him back, Togashi. Jeez, he's on the boat for God's sakes. Perhaps it'll take him to help ground Kirapica if shit hits the fan. Who knows? Welcome back, everybody, to the HunterXHunter Succession War recap video series, where I break down different elements of the current arc of the series in different videos in order to kind of help you keep track of this incredibly information-heavy storyline. This will be the final video in the recap series, and with any luck, we will start getting some new chapters. I'm just kidding. But do look in the description of this video for the links to parts 1 through 4. I've already discussed everything, including the Dark Continent related stuff, broke down each of the 14 princes, their Nen abilities, and the Nen Beast. I talked about the Phantom Troop and Hisoka, and followed up on Kirapica's storyline in the midst of all this going on. Now, the final big portion to talk about deals with the 3 mafia groups of Kakin, who are all aboard the Black Whale ship headed to the Dark Continent. Each group has a significant leader, and the way that they operate, control a tier of the ship, and are connected to a particular prince. So let's start diving into them one by one, and see what part they are playing in the biggest, most dynamic HunterXHunter storyline yet. First of all, the 3 mafia families of the Kakin are the CU, the Cha-R, and the Li families. All are aboard the Black Whale ship, and each family controls a tier of the ship and block passageways between the other tiers. The Cha-R controls the bottom 5th tier, the CU is on tier 4, and the Li is on tier 3. And there's a mutual stalemate balance between them. But they don't work together. It's more so they know as soon as one attacks the other, all hell will break loose. It kind of reminds me of Togashi's other shonen manga / anime, Yu Yu Hakusho. In the final arc of that series, there was 3 demon kings of the demon world, and they were all at a constant stalemate for control because they knew if one attacked the other and won, then the third would move in, attacking the weakened winner, and gain full control. So nobody made a move on each other. Also, if you have not read or watched Yu Yu Hakusho, I highly recommend that you do so. Now, the leaders of each mafia group are also illegitimate children to the Kakin crown. They have royal blood in their veins, but they're not permitted to be princes because they were out of wedlock. They signify this at birth by taking 2 razors and slashing their faces when they're babies. They give them an identifying mark that will never allow them to be seen as a legitimate heir to the throne. It makes sense since they weren't able to become king of Kakin, the country. They became kings of their own little syndicates and act as such. They are not allowed to show themselves in public at large or interfere with politics in any way. Now, the thing that throws everything into chaos for the mafia groups is the arrival of the Phantom Troop. The troop is on board the Black Whale, and they are here searching for Hisoka in order to kill him, getting revenge for the troop members that Hisoka killed. The troop, being the thieves that they are, snuck on board and thus are stuck on the lowest tier of the ship, tier 5. And Hisoka could be anywhere on the ship, so they want to get to the other tiers to check. Realizing the only way to do this is to go through the Mafia, the troop at first figures that they will just antagonize the Mafia and then force their way through. After all, it wouldn't be the first time that they took down Mafia members. Now, the 3 Mafia groups get word that the troop is on board, and each one decides to respond in a little bit of a different way. Since the reputation of the Phantom Troop is that of extremely dangerous, even to those in high power like the Mafia, they must be dealt with, and they cannot be ignored. So the Cha-R family is headed by a guy named Brocco Lee. Yeah, so he's probably the healthiest one, I assume? I don't know. He is a half-brother of the current Kakin king, and despite his mafia controlling tier 5, he himself stays in a VIP location up on tier 1. He is also closely connected with the 7th Prince Loserus. When he hears news of the Phantom Troop on board, he commands his members to find Hisoka before the troop can. This way they'll hold some kind of power or control over what the troop wants, and so far this has been an unsuccessful venture. Meanwhile, 3 Phantom Troop members, Thinx, Phaeton, and Nobunaga, enter a cargo area looking for their weapons, only to see a member of the Cha-R family disappear in front of them and then reappear behind them dead. And the troop don't really care and just kind of continue on looking for their weapons, but then a guy named Ken I. Wang, yeah? He offers the troop members a chance to team up for a mutual benefit. See, the Cha-R Mafia has been having members steadily killed off, and they are assuming it's because of the Zhang Li Mafia group. They think that they are declaring war, and that the teleporting assassin has something to do with it. After being introduced to a guy named Tahao, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but he tries to explain the rules for the Mafia attacking one another to the Phantom Troop and how they aren't being followed. But he also has a secret passageway that can get all the way to Tier 1. So Thinx, Phaeton, and Nobunaga of the Phantom Troop tell him that they can just find this teleporting assassin and kill him in exchange for access to the first tier. But they go even farther than that, saying that they can just kill the leader of the Zhang Li Mafia, which is a girl named Morena, who I will get to in a moment. Next is the CU family. They control Tier 4 of the ship and are headed by Onior Longbao, another half-brother of the current king, who has direct ties with 3rd Prince Zhang Li and is also residing in a VIP section of Tier 1. After hearing from Bracco Lee that the Phantom Troop is on board the ship, he as well orders his men to find Hisoka before the troop can. But soon he realizes that members of his own mafia group are also being steadily killed off, the culprits again being suspected as members of the Zhang Li group. Onior puts his right-hand man, Hinrai, on the task of finding Hisoka and defending against the Zhang Li. Hinrai takes this task with utmost seriousness and takes 2 other members, Lynch and Zakuro, with him to Tier 3, which is the Zhang Li turf. Once there, they are spotted by a couple Zhang Li members, and a battle soon breaks out. But these 3 happen to know Nen and have some deadly abilities. Zakuro has his neck slit by a Zhang Li member, but just so happens to be a manipulator that can control his own blood and uses it to attack and beat down his assailant. Lynch attacks the other one, and she is an emitter who can force a truthful answer from somebody by punching them. With this, she manages to force out how many members of the Zhang Li are doing the killing, and for what reasons. And finally, Hinrai himself. Well, 2 guards saw what happened, and they tell them to return to their proper tier, but by touching their weapons, Hinrai is able to turn them into creatures, in this case snakes, and have it turn on their handlers, so the guards both are effectively shot and put down, allowing Hinrai, Lynch, and Zakuro to continue their search on the 3rd tier. And finally, the Zhang Li family, which is headed by a woman named Morena, who is the daughter of the current Kakin king and is in close ties with the 4th Prince Serenity. And unlike the other 2 mafia bosses, Morena does not care at all about maintaining order. She doesn't care about the succession war. She doesn't even care about her own life or anything else. She is a complete nihilist and only wants to create chaos. And just as the other 2 groups suspected, she is responsible for sending her members out to kill them, which is effectively declaring war between the 3 mafia groups. Now, Morena has only 22 followers, but her Nen ability kind of works like a virus or an infection. By kissing one of her members, she is able to make it so that their aura will awaken and increases as they kill people. So if they kill a regular person, they increase 1 level. If they kill somebody with a Nen ability, they increase by 10 levels. And if they actually happen to kill a prince, they increase by 50. So yeah, even she's saying that the princes themselves are fair game here, not just the other mafia members. Well, when they reach level 20, they awaken their own Nen ability, and if they can make it to the top level 100, they are able to start the process all over again by kissing someone themselves and forming their own group of followers. It's absolutely crazy, and like I said, you can only compare it to something like a plague or a virus that could potentially steadily infect the entire ship. And with that, she sends out her followers off throughout the ship to create this sweeping chaos. So we don't get to know every one of the 22 members, but only a few stand out to take notice of, like the guy Luini, who has a crescent moon mark on his face, and he killed 20 people in no time, thus granting him a Nen ability of teleportation. And yes, he is the one that killed the Cha-R member in front of the Phantom Troop. He also has an admiration for the Phantom Troop, knowing that their reputation precedes them, and kind of is jealous of their spot and status. There's also a woman named Cashew, who covers up for Luini's murders by mixing lies with the truth, as she was questioned by Miezustam, one of the Hunter Association Zodiacs who was investigating these 20 murders. So long story short, the three mafia groups are now at war, with the Li family leading the charge. The CU seems to have some powerful members on their team, but the Cha-R has 3 Phantom Troop members striking a deal to work together. So we shall see how any of this goes when HunterXHunter ever returns. Now, the last thing I want to touch on, I wanted to put in this video here because it wouldn't really fit anywhere else, and that's yet another group of individuals separate from all this, but I believe may play an important part coming up in the story, and that is the Untouchables. In an ancient Kakin tradition, an afterlife companion was chosen to be buried with a prince that died to help ensure that the prince didn't become a vengeful ghost and haunt the survivors. Now, I'm sure this probably has something to do with Nen after death, or the Nen Beast, Nen becoming more powerful after death. That whole theme is very prevalent here in this arc, and it probably has something to do with the coffins that the Kakin king has set up. But as for the specifics, we are still unsure, as the afterlife companion thing is now a thing of the past that Kakin no longer does. But the Untouchables are part of a lower class system that used to be used for that afterlife companion. And now that they aren't, they're just low-class citizens with no purpose. Well, second Prince Camilla took notice of them and returned purpose to them. She has them work as her own private guards and grants them a level of status that they would otherwise be impossible to reach. And keeping in line with rituals and Nen after death and things of that nature that Kakin seems to enjoy, the Untouchables have a goal of enacting a curse upon the other princes. Each Untouchable is tasked with one of the princes, and they must keep something of that prince with them at all times. It can be a picture of them, or a piece of clothing, or it doesn't matter what it is. And they have to wish death upon this prince every single day for months to years. And this is basically channeling their Nen to enact a Nen after death killing, because eventually they must kill themselves in front of their target. And because the desire was so focused and so strong, oh yeah, and they also have to make direct eye contact while they kill themselves, it's that connection and desire. So after they kill themselves, their Nen takes over and acts as a Nen after death so powerful that it attacks and kills their target, enacting the curse, if you will. So that's some pretty intense and scary stuff, and these Untouchables only work for the second Prince Camilla, so that is a huge ace in the hole that she has in her back pocket. And Camilla is currently in a holding cell being detained because she attempted to kill First Prince Benjamin herself. But anyways, guys, that will do it for part 5 of my Succession War recap series. Honestly, despite how crowded this arc is with characters, ideas, plot lines, and events, I think it's absolutely incredible how well woven they are between each other, and Togashi has certainly crafted his own Game of Thrones, his own Titanic, his own Godfather series, and wrapped it all into one. And I can't wait to see how it all plays out, and I believe just like the York New or Chimera Ant arcs, the first half is all this setup and build up. And I believe that so far we have only experienced the first half. My theory is that the second half will be when all these moving forces collide. Hell, the final third of this arc might all take place while the ship is sinking, and I think that would be pretty incredible. But yes, I hope you enjoyed my recap. Like I said, it wasn't to describe every single little detail, but just to give you a good overview on what's going on and what all the characters have been doing and what they are up to currently. Tell me what you think about the introduction of the Mafia element in the comments below, and tell me what you think will happen with them. Will Thinx and the others face Marina? Will they actually be able to kill her? Will one of the groups find Hisoka before the Phantom Troop does? Will any of them make it to Tier 1 and kill a prince? Any of these thoughts, ideas, and comments, please put all that down below. Thank you for the support of these videos and joining me for this journey while I recap the Succession War arc. It's been pretty fun to put these videos together, and now all 5 exist that you can watch through at any time. So thanks a lot for watching these videos, guys. Please give it a thumbs up. Please like the video, comment, subscribe if you want to stick around and see more. Other than that, I'll talk to you in the next video.